Hey guys, so a while ago someone commented on this channel asking me if I could do a video about knives, specifically fixed blades, and then recently someone else saw the video that I did on that Israeli self-defense tool, the spiky, and then said, I guess they considered like it being similar to a karambit and asked me if I could do something on that. So here's the 2-in-1 deal video where I talk about both fixed blade knives and the karambits. And so, first and foremost, this information is that stuff I'm giving to people that I'm assuming are legally allowed to carry knives and stuff on them, because this is mostly going to be about concealed carry and stuff like that with knives. And so, if it's not legal and you do it anyway, not reliable or responsible for that, okay, all that shit's on you, so anyway, there it is. Okay, now here's the thing, when you're carrying a blade on you, wherever it is, you need to, it's like the principles and concepts are pretty much the same as when carrying a firearm on you, concealed firearm. It's got to be someplace where you can get to it easily, and you also need to be able to practice with it and get it out in a hurry. Now, because knives aren't a remote weapon, like a firearm, remote meaning that you can inflict tissue damage from a distance, it's going to be something that's done at close range. And for me, yeah, if I'm like in Australia, it's illegal to carry knives, okay? So this is stuff that I do like overseas where it's legal. I have different methods when walking around on the streets here in Australia, but again, not what this video is about. So this is going out to you people that live in luckier countries where you get to arm yourself. Okay, so at the moment, the knife that I have on me is here. Okay, if you couldn't tell that I had a knife on me, it's because I did conceal it well. And that's how it should be. There's advantages to concealing stuff on your body. So if there's a guy that goes to a place and wants to start some trouble and wants to take out the people that he knows are armed, well, if you've exposed it and made it clear as day that you have a weapon on you, I don't want to be the one that gets taken out first to make the job a little bit easier. So I'm going to hide my stuff. And the belt line is the place where people will typically mostly have a blade on them. And so for me, I had that sort of like appendix. And because, keep in mind, like, I don't have a sheath, but obviously put it in a sheath. You just want to like have an open blade aiming at your so it's a bit safer to have that knife aiming that direction than a gun, because I have a story where a guy carried appendix and then blew his dick off. So yeah, that's the other redeeming factor about carrying knives and stuff like that, because the blade that I had, and there's a checklist I go over when it comes to blades. First off, I don't like overcompensating blades, and what I mean by that is the ones that are practically a mini fucking sword. Like those Arnold Schwarzenegger style oversized knives that have a blade about that big. It's kind of overkill. For me, I prefer something like 4 to 5 inches of a blade length. That's more than enough to do the job. When you consider that it takes probably a third of an inch depth of cut to slit someone's throat and have them bleed out and die, well, you think of all the advantage that you have with only, like, just say it's 3.5 inches even. And so for me, the one that I had was on an ankle. And people asked, why don't you have like a revolver or like a, semi-automatic small pistol of the same size and something like that on the ankle when you're carrying? Well, I did. It was a different ankle. But I wanted to have a knife in there as well, because the thing is, most people carry a revolver on their ankle, because if they get knocked to the ground and need to take a gun out and shoot someone, the thing is, most people I'm sure would already know, and if you don't, I'll briefly mention this, semi-automatic pistols, that meaning the ones that have the slide that move back, when someone's on top of you and you need to take a gun out and push it into their body to make sure that you're going to get that shot in, if you apply too much pressure with some guns, when the slide moves back to a certain extent, you get it won't fire. You get like the mushy trigger and stuff like that, and next thing the round doesn't go off. That's one redeeming factor of revolvers, because it's just the barrel and then the cylinder at the back and stuff like that, and so I can push as hard as I want, still get that shot. And as Clint Smith pointed out, you're going to need a shower afterwards because there'll be overspray. The thing is that in any revolver, I get like, what, 6, 7 shots maybe if it's a smaller caliber. If I have first of all, if I do have a gun, I can push it against someone's stomach, or heart or chest or somewhere in their body. I can do the same thing with a knife, so I'd rather have a knife. It's, one, quieter, if stealth is a thing. For me, I'm just mostly focused on my hearing. No one likes to be deaf. The other advantage of it as well is that it doesn't run out of ammo, so I can stab them more than 7 times if need be. I'm not saying when the person's like no longer a threat that you need to chase them down and stab them 50 more times in the back. Just, you know, what's necessary here. The other thing too is that unlike firearms, if I'm on my back and whatnot, I'm likely to develop tunnel vision, and the problem is that, say if I put it in their body, I pull the trigger, but say I shot him like here through the stomach, it went through, okay, went through the kidney and everything, didn't hit any bone, went out the other side. That comes into the principle of you having to be sure of your target and what's beyond it. It's a little bit difficult to like figure out everything that's behind you when you're on your back and someone's on top of you obstructing your view and trying to kill you with a weapon and pounding you the shit out of you, like because they want to beat you to death or something, or maybe they have their own gun. There's a struggle. There's a myriad of factors that can happen. But if I have a knife, I don't need to worry about like what's, you know, behind my target because it doesn't fire a projectile. And so another advantage of having that. So my point is, be logical about where you want to put in your body. And so yes, if I'm on my back, if the person's in the what I refer to as the full mount, which is where if I'm on my back, the person's on top of my hip area and, you know, facing me, so it's not in the reverse cowgirl position. That'd be weird. Anyway, and so this is also why when I'm talking to other police officers, most in Australia, when they tell a suspect to, well, like when they're arresting someone, when they give them a command, they tell them to put their hands behind their back. If someone has a weapon on them, it's likely going to be around the belt line, so this is why I'm a big advocate of making, like, all other things aside, their hands specifically, go on the back of their head where I can see them, or way the fuck up in the sky, with their hands flexed out like that, so I know that they don't have anything in there. And so, much like the draw as well, you need to practice that, so if it's concealed, you need to get that shirt out the way. So there's a few schools of thought. One is use your one hand and take it up like this, so you have the other hand. Others say use 2 hands to pull it up because it's better than one, then go grab the knife. And such as guns, you have the hip draw, which is where you draw it from here and then fire that way. You have appendix carry. You can have the gun on the other side and then draw it that way, which is a cross draw. Well, you can do the same thing with the knife as well. The other advantage of having a cross draw with a knife is the fact that as you're drawing it out, you can still slash with it. A gun, obviously, well, you could pistol whip it maybe, but ultimately it is a gun where you're stabbing someone with bullets. Okay, other ways that you can use knives, specifically the fixed blade one, is, well, yes, always with the fixed blade, have it in a sheath and somewhere like that. That'd be the best way to carry it. And of course, if you have room for more than one, well, you know, carry them too. Like, why not? One place I don't recommend carrying them is at the very back right here, okay? Doesn't matter if it's a gun, a knife, anything. I don't recommend you keeping one there. Just because if you get knocked over, anything that's can apply pressure to this, the vertebrates in your spine, yeah, can render me a paraplegic or at least seriously injure me and temporarily paralyze me to the extent where I won't be able to fight too well, and no one wants that. However, if the knife aims directly across that way based on the type of sheath that you have for it, it's better than having it aiming directly that way, but it's still not a big recommendation of mine. So I prefer having it this side of the hip, this side, where you can do a cross draw, or that one. I will say I much rather prefer the hip draw, because if someone's on this side of me and I need to get a hand up or something like that to push them away, and then, here, let me do this real quickly. So anyway, so I'm doing this, and then I'm doing, like, maybe moving my hand around the face like that, distract him and ripping and things like that as I'm getting this out, then I can come in for this. However, it's a little bit more difficult to do that when I have to have my body aim like this here, because I want to have the part of my body where I'm keeping the knife furthest away from my opponent, so it makes them a little bit harder to grab it. And no matter how good I am at trying to, like, move my hand around the face, stuff like that, if they grab it and move it out the way and then see my hand going there, their hands are closer to my weapon, okay, and I want it further away, where I can, not to say they can't get it, but I'll have better retention this way. Other knives you can get. Anything spring-loaded is illegal in Australia, but essentially you get the flick knives, and they're the ones where there's a handle and it, okay, say that there's, like, the handle here and the blade folds out like this, okay, so my hand's the handle, there goes the blade. Other spring-loaded ones are the out-the-front knives, meaning that it shoots straight out the front. Now, I'm not a very big fan of any of those ones. I don't like out-the-front knives, I don't like the whole switchblade kind of things and stuff like that, because it takes longer to get the damn thing out. The other issue as well is that the out-the-front knives I've seen, and keep in mind the ones I'm mostly a fan of, if any, is Microtech, but they don't have the best stop guards on the handle. More on that in a minute. And the ones I've seen, they're either button activated, where you hit a button, knife shoots out, or it's like a Stanley knife switch, where you like flick a switch up, knife comes out, you flick the switch back, it comes back in. The issue with that is that it's a very fine button. And if you've seen any of my other videos related to guns, just watch the Cineraxis Real Look videos, you'll know why I don't advocate hitting the slide release to get the gun back into battery. And it's the same thing with those particular knives. I don't like moving my finger around because in high levels of stress. For those of you that may not have seen those other videos, there's an expression which I first heard James Yeager use: fingers turn to flippers, because you lose sensitivity in the fingers under high levels of stress. So I don't want to have to get that out and go, ah, fuck, like that, and try and, get the blade out. So I would much rather a fixed blade. The only advantage that they have is that they take up less room inside you. But anyway, here's the thing: if you get the decent sized knife, I'm not saying you have to get one exactly this long. The blade you could have about up to here, so that's almost half that size, and that would still do the job, because the heart from the surface of the body, assuming you absolutely necessarily have to do a kill stab to the heart, it's only, you only have to penetrate about that much, so as long as the blade's long enough, well, you've got it. Other areas, like throat, ear, eyes, stuff like that. So basically every place that people need to avoid getting stabbed is a place that would make a great target on your opponent. Okay. And then there's the other standard folding knives. These are the ones that most people will get their hands on in Australia because they're not illegal. There's like, depending on the states and stuff like that, some say that if it's gravity resistant, meaning you can flick it out by inertia with one hand, then it's illegal. And then some places change that, and then there's grey areas here and all this other shit. But anyway, you can't take it outside any knife, even if you're a fucking kitchen knife. You're not allowed to have on you when going outside, if you have it on you for the intention of using it as a weapon. Which, if it's on your person, the fuck you think it's going to be there for? I doubt that they're going to go to a cooking class and decided, yeah, here's a good place for me to put my knife, okay? But anyway, this isn't about laws, it's about how to use a knife. Okay, so that's essentially the knives that we got out there. And then, of course, you have the butterfly knives, and I'm not a fan of those either. I mean, if you think, like, hitting a button on one of those flick knives is difficult, wait till you have to get this other thing and do the whole spinny thing and then try not to drop it while under that high level of stress. So yes, for me it's fixed blades all the way. But again, if, room or something like that's a factor, then yeah, folding knives is the other way to go, and then you got the throw knives and stuff like that. But of course, I'm talking about stuff that's need to be, held by hand and thrusted into someone else's body. Again, for survival, so remember kids, violence is bad. Okay. Then we move on to the karambit. Here's the thing why I'm not the biggest fan of these type of knives. You can certainly stab someone with it. However, the blade isn't exactly shaped in such a manner where it's really made for that. It's more of a carving weapon. And what's the difference between slashing, cutting, and carving? Well, slashing and cutting are pretty much the same when it comes to blades, at least in my mind. Carving is where you rip at the same time, which is what this shape is for. And so traditionally people hold it like this and stuff like that and rip it, but the other thing you need to understand is that if this is for the purpose of self-defense, this may take place outside of your house. So if you're in a public setting, who else operates out of public areas? Witnesses and also police officers. So if a police officer sees you attacking someone else with a knife and they come over to break up the scene, they get out their gun, they say, hey, put the weapon down, I want to be able to drop it in a hurry. So if I constantly train to have my finger through this little loophole, remember like I said before how you lose that sensitivity in your fingers? And when most people are walking around normally, and I'm just trying to get my tiptoes so you can sort of see me better here, fingers curve in. So when people freak out, you revert back to that. The fingers don't flex open like this. Why do I bring that up? Because if I'm attacking someone with the karambit in whichever way that I was doing it, keep in mind I wouldn't be doing it in this really fancy way that they did it in that showdown in the Second Raid movie. Fucking amazing movie and fight scene too, by the way, but alas, it's a movie, not real. I do recommend, if you like your martial arts films, watch that one, and the first one. Watch both of them, they're awesome. Anything that martial arts movies that director does, watch them. Gareth Evans. Okay, so back to the point. See what I mean about tangents? Okay, so karambits, yeah, if they tell me to drop it, I don't want my finger getting caught up in this little hole here, because I'll be like, get the gun out, put the thing down, and if I go, okay, they may, if it's a new police officer, maybe they're not so highly trained, something like that, they're a little bit jittery, maybe a little bit trigger happy as well, or they just see me as not putting the knife down, I don't want to get shot. on top of that, I also don't want to have to use more rapid motion like that to try and drop it, because they might think I'm like spaced out on crack or something and about to go charge them. And for anyone that is familiar with the 21 feet rule, well then you know that that's warranted to shoot someone then if you think that they're going to come and charge at you from that distance, because, well, yeah, you will get stabbed. I might get shot, but again, I'll do another video on that, which I'll call good guy goals versus bad guy goals. Alright, the other way is that, again, you can hold the karambit like this, but here's the thing, I don't see any reason as to why someone, like, needs to use a karambit to do anything that a knife like this couldn't do. So remember, if you apply logic to it and streetify it, let's call it, I would prefer just a knife like this, fixed blade, you know, decent sized blade, and keep in mind the shorter the blade, and you need to look for middle ground here. Too short, damage won't be as devastating, but if the blade's too long, you have more of a weapon to control. And so if I have like a nice intermediate blade as the preferred length that I mentioned earlier, you have more control over it then. Other advantages too is that it's lighter, and again, that will also give you more control. So, I think I'm nearing the end of this video because I can't really think of anything else to say, and yeah, like in regards to these karambits, yes, I can stab with them, but again, the other knife, I can stab with that better. Yeah, I can carve with these. Well, the other knife I can still cut at, and again, it's not really how much, like, I rip away. It doesn't matter to me if it's a clean cut or if it's a dirty cut, which is what you'll mostly get with this. If you want to know what I mean, if you have a real karambit and a real knife, which is like similar bladed to this, get a cardboard box, stab this one in, and then rip it across by putting the blade about that far on the top, and they'll cut cleaner than if you put that same like just that much in the top of a karambit and then rip it across, because one's like it's like a talon, you know, it's like claws the shit out of stuff. And for me though, like if I slash someone, yeah, they'll bleed out, but what I want more is stopping power, okay? I don't want lethal power unless it's going to be immediate, that'll stop the person doing the bad thing that I want them to stop doing. The other thing too is that most people that have been stabbed and survived typically didn't see the knife. Reason being is because they didn't know what to look out for. They didn't know posturing of someone, the way they stand if they have a knife and things like that. There was one guy who was an MMA fighter. I believe his name was Lee Murray. He got stabbed repeatedly. I think it was something like, it was more than 10 times, but maybe less than 20, so somewhere between that. And he said that he thought he was being punched until he saw blood squirting out of his chest. And luckily he survived, and well, what I was told, he drove himself to the hospital and lived. Died twice on the operating table, but after that he's still going, so hats off to him. And anyway, my point is that if he got stabbed that amount of times and was able to keep fighting and then survive through the whole thing, well, keep in mind, you may need to be faced with the same thing. So what's better than me just slashing parts of the body is stabbing, okay? And again, you need to know the proper areas and where to stab. So maybe I'll make another video on that, but if you want me to, like, there's a plethora of information out there on the internet, okay? It's not just me making these videos, and so if there's better information out there, I typically reference people to that. And so, you know, you can go look that up if you want to, or if you do want me to make a video on ways to cut and, you know, attack the body with the knife, again, for the purpose of self-defense and survival, not just to be a psychopath, well then, you know, that's what the comment section's for. So if there's any other questions about this particular video that I didn't answer thoroughly enough in this one, then again, let me know and ask me all of what your questions were, and I'll make a part 2 of this. So, other than that, as always, thank you for watching, and stay safe.